Hello, everyone. Welcome to Rosie Presents. I'm Sarah Pritchard. I'm the Executive Director of Rosie the Riveter Trust. Today is March 21st, 2023. And from wherever you're signing on, so happy to welcome you to a very, very special presentation tonight, this morning, as we live in a virtual round the world time zone. I'm so pleased this evening to introduce you to Marian Sousa, a real Rosie, who is actually dear to our hearts. She's also a park ambassador, and you'll hear more about that later. We are going to first show a film called The Homefront Heroes, and I'm going to show you where it's located in case you want to see it again. It's about a 15-minute show. And then we're going to have a little Q&A and talk. Lisa Foote, who works with us, is going to be interviewing Marian. And I know that it's very apropos for us to be interviewing her today on National Rosie the Riveter Day. And you're going to hear why. So that's going to come after the film. And then there'll be a chance for you to do some Q&A. And we do have you, when you do come across a question or a comment, please put it in the chat. If you want to say hello and where you're streaming in from, please do that as well. And then just to let you know that this is being recorded, we have a YouTube channel. Go to Rosie the Riveter Trust on YouTube, and you can see not only this Rosie Presents, but some of the other presentations that we have done. I think that they are very educational and fun, like we hope this one will be. Okay, so to start, we are going to go, I'm going to the Park Films, the National Park Service film site. Enjoy the show.
It was a beautiful little city. I fell in love with it.
Everything was wide open and rough and wild.
The conditions for growing are really, really good in Richmond. Lots of sunlight, and it's not too hot.
It's kind of a combination of industry and semi-rural landscape that most people remember. They would have vegetable gardens and a cow tethered out behind their home and walk up to McDonald Avenue to do their shopping.
Richmond was a working man's town. You had the Pullman coach refurbishing factories there.
Standard Oil, the railroad, and later the Ford Assembly Building. Kind of a working class community.
You had a diversity of ethnicities and races living in Richmond. Italian Americans and African Americans, a Japanese American population, Chinese population, Native American, Indian population, as well, of course, as Mexican American. Kaiser plant located there before Pearl Harbor. Richmond had a really good deep-water harbor, perfect for the shipping industry. It had lots of open space. It also had a working force.
The attack yesterday on the Hawaiian Islands has caused severe damage.
It was absolute horror. We were in total shock and terror because we were being told immediately that we might be bombed, and we had to immediately go into blackout mode.
When we got into the war, there was a big demand. We had to have ships, we had to have everything. I heard on my car radio Women, do something for your country. Go to the Richmond shipyard and be a welder. I had not the faintest idea what it was. I just knew that it was something that they needed done real bad, and I decided that that's what I was going to do.
Loaded that suitcase and got it on a train and came to California and stayed with my sister, Caroline.
We all thought we could make money working in the shipyards. Father was the type of man that looked for better jobs, and he wanted me with him.
Henry Kaiser, you know, he brought a lot of people back from the South to work in the shipyard.
For African American Southerners, the most frequently given graduation gift was not a watch or a typewriter, but a train or bus ticket out to the West.
In 2 years, little Richmond of 23,000 had become a bustling metropolis of 130,000. This fabulous growth necessitated civic expansion.
Richmond's population exploded physically, but also in terms of cultural and social and even political differences that made living together and working together a challenge.
I remember always sleeping in crowded conditions.
There wasn't enough housing for anybody.
Some were living in a truck, some living in a car. Everybody was taking in roomers. I had a roommate. I worked swing shift. She worked graveyard. We slept in the same bed.
That way I could sleep in the daytime and they could sleep in the bed at night. In downtown Richmond was just seething with people.
Lots of people on the streets. I mean, like 4th of July or like Cinco de Mayo.
Grocery stores were open 24 hours. Everything was open 24 hours a day during that time.
Everything was moving. The energy was everywhere.
You had clubs like Minnie Lou's Restaurant and Blues Club in North Richmond. And then there was, of course, this enormously popular club called Tapper's Inn. It was a nightclub, a blues club, and they had sort of in the back room the slot machines and card games and things like that.
It was a busy, happening, good town. People had jobs, and there was optimism, and there was an energy.
In addition to the shipyards, there were 55 other defense-related industries in Richmond, so there were workers moving in all directions.
Everybody was working towards the same goal. We wanted to bring the boys home.
I went to the hiring hall, and they said, you have to join the Boilermakers Union. So I went there, and this man, stern, big, and said, we don't take any women or blacks. The next day, I went back to the hiring hall, and they gave me the same story, and I started crying. And there was a man sitting at a desk, and he says, go back up there. And they hired me.
But then when they brought in the women, oh my land, the men laughed at them terribly at first. You know, look at her walk, look at her. She doesn't even know how to hold a hammer.
There were tensions in the workplace that related to both race and gender. There were people who said, I'm not going to work with a black person, and there were men who said, I'm not going to work alongside a woman. So we talk about unity during World War II, but there were lots and lots of bridges that had to be built.
In the case of Kaiser, the labor unions, particularly the Boilermakers Union, began reluctantly to accept first women and then African Americans, men and women. The momentum to challenge Jim Crow that really launched the modern civil rights movement grew out of the WWII campaign, that African Americans pushed for victory over the enemies abroad, but also over Jim Crow at home. The Pittsburgh Courier really was behind launching this campaign for African Americans to challenge and defeat segregation, discrimination based on race, in housing, in the workplace, in schools.
I went to Richmond High and was taught welding, and I worked at Kaiser's, but I never worked side by side with on the same ship with a man welding.
I'll tell you what, the women were the best welders. If you give the woman the job, she goes and does that job until it's done right.
It was like creating an embroidery in metal. I could point out that was a man's weld and that was a woman's weld because they look different. The men's isn't as uniform.
We worked for hours and hours. We did twice work the men did.
A new world shipbuilding record is set at one of Henry J. Kaiser's California shipyards. 24 days ago, just a keel plate.
Henry Kaiser was a genius.
He started one of the first health plans, and he started a place for people to live and things that people didn't have before.
He developed the child care centers to accommodate the children needing care while their parents were at work.
And here's the man who builds them in record time, Henry J. Kaiser, with a model to show how it's done. Built to scale, the 14-foot model is made of 81 pieces.
Everything was prefabbed under Kaiser, where they had the big sheets of steel and they'd weld those together and then move them by crane onto the ships.
We call them the Horley cranes. They were so enormous, and they would lift these massive pieces of metal and boxes, and they were just one of the biggest things I'd ever seen.
And that's how come ships could be built so fast. Parts would be welded together and ready to be put onto a ship in no time.
Our motto was 10 down the ways in 31 days.
Down the ways. They would slide that ship down into the San Francisco Bay.
Rain or shine, ships quietly slipped into San Francisco Bay, faster and faster. By the fall of 1943, more than one ship a day left Richmond, the most colossal shipbuilding spectacle the world had ever witnessed.
They were always giving speeches and telling us how the other yards, how fast they were getting a ship built. So there was always competition.
And I remember when we worked on the Robert Peary, which was built, by the way, I think is, the record has it either 3.5 or 4.5 days from beginning to finish. And I think that's an amazing thing.
The launchings at Yard 1 and 2 were particularly festive occasions. They got famous people from all over the country. Ship would go sliding down the ways right after the champagne was cracked over the bow. Very ceremonial.
It was a patriotic time. You'd see the kids collecting newspapers, collecting tinfoil, collecting anything. Women, they gave up all their girdles, all their underwear that had elastic.
It really was the most wonderful time of coming together of the American people that I have ever lived through.
It wasn't as if the shipyards closed and some balloon burst and Richmond was depopulated. It really continued to be a thriving community.
Today, I think you have waves of newcomers who have that kind of vibrancy that those newcomers during the wartime had. Richmond, it was called the city that won the Purple Heart because of the amount of change and crowding in the war effort and turning out those ships in record numbers. Something happened in the small town of Richmond that people should be very proud of.
I was very proud of myself that I worked in the shipyards. Proud of myself because I thought we were doing something for the war effort.
From that point on, I always thought, I can do anything I want to do. If I set my mind to it, I can do anything. And that's how I've lived the rest of my life.
This was the place to be. What sticks with me the most was how wonderful everybody was to each other. Very patriotic and pulling together, and it was just a good time.
That's what makes the story so interesting, that these were ordinary people who did extraordinary things.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lisa Foote, and I work with Rosie the Riveter Trust, and I hope you enjoyed that film. I know there's little glitches for those of you who are not in California, or more specifically the Bay Area. We've had kind of a crazy storm today. So as a matter of fact, Mary and I are doing this not via Wi-Fi, but by cell phone Wi-Fi. So forgive us if there's a little bit of glitch. This presentation tonight is the last of our series celebrating Riveter Days, which we had this past weekend. It was great. Thank you for everybody who came out specifically on Saturday to meet all of our Rosies, including Marian, who was there, and also for the other events that we had. It really means a lot that you come out to our park and to the visitor center and to the memorial and make sure that these women and men are recognized and remembered. So today, March 21st is a very special day. It's not just Rosie the Riveter Day, but it's a very special day. And I want Marian Sousa, who is a draftsman, started at the age of 17 working in the shipyards, to explain why March 21st is Rosie the Riveter Day.
Well, you know, my sister decided on March 21st because that's our mother's birthday. So she'll always be remembered.
And your mother worked in the shipyards, correct?
She did. After three of her older daughters, we all worked in the Kaiser shipyards. And my mother wanted to do something for the war effort too. Like so many women, you know, we were just called to help out. The guys were gone. And so she put my younger sister into the Kaiser child care, and who gave her breakfast and sent her to school every day. And my mother became a spray painter. And she actually stayed in the shipyards doing this work until the shipyards closed. Her daughters all had married and started families, but she's the one who was the real pioneer. Yeah.
I just want to also make a mention that if any of you have questions, so I know some people are raising their hands. We're not going to be doing raise hands, but if you have questions specifically for Marian about her work in the shipyards, or as Rosie Ambassador, which we like to call her now, Marian, along with several of her Rosies, have been coming to the visitor center for over 10 years to personally share their stories. So it helps bring history to life. And we couldn't be more grateful to her and all the other Rosies that have been part of this. So I know that Phyllis chose Rosie the Riveter Day for March 21st because your mother, but I don't think a lot of people understand how Rosie the Riveter Day came about.
How it came about?
Yeah.
Through the efforts of my sister, Phyllis Gould, and another Rosie friend called May Cryer. And they went to Washington, D.C. and actually petitioned senators and representatives and presidents for this. And it took a supreme effort, and it took a lot of time and a lot of patience and a lot of visits. But it paid off. They finally agreed that we would have Rosie the Riveter Day, and California and Washington. I'm in Pennsylvania. Sorry, Pennsylvania. Both declared March 21st as Rosie the Riveter Day. Other states have given other dates for it, but California has done their part, and I recently realized I have a little pocket calendar that actually has it printed, Rosie the Riveter Day on March 21st. And I'm really proud of that. That's visible. That's real.
So again, if you have any questions for Marian specifically about the time during World War II or for Rosie the Riveter Day, that would be great. So Kim has mentioned that it's an amazing story, this work on the home front that all the Rosies did, and that women really make things happen. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Is there anything that you observed while working on the home front that you saw, wow, either with yourself or anybody else, any other women that you couldn't believe it was happening?
This everybody wanted to do something, and not everybody had the opportunity that I did, because I got to go to school and have 6 weeks training for my job. A lot of people didn't, but every job in that shipyard was important. It was needed, and made you proud as a woman that women would take these jobs. I'm just amazed at my sisters. I mean, they were welders. They were doing hot metal overhead as a journeyman welder. That's rough, but it takes skill. Women have the skills. Yes.
And speaking of skills, somebody asked, what sort of skills did you need to be a draftsman?
Well, it originally started in high school, and I took art classes, and that art class teacher gave me the opportunity. There were 3 of us girls that were selected from this class to have this opportunity to go to UC Berkeley for a 6 weeks course in engineering drawing. We learned to read and to draw blueprints, and that's why we were hired right out of that classroom to go to the shipyards and work. I actually worked on the blueprints for the troop transports that we were building at shipyard number 3. I would set it on the drafting table, but I erased architects' drawings and put in my own with supervision. We had men who were architects, maybe had never built a ship, but if you can read a blueprint, you can build anything. And these men were very knowledgeable. My drafting work and what I could do was kind of elementary things. We did have another room that had the master draftsman in there that did the things that required a lot of math and more detailed than we were. But we felt a need, and I'm happy that I was able to do it. I'm glad I had a skill to do that, and I have always been proud of that, my year as a Rosie, as a working woman of World War II. Yes.
Now, I know that the official age to do war work was 18 years old. Were you 18?
No.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I had finished my 6 weeks training in August. My birthday is in January. Well, I wanted to go to work right now, So I talked my mother into lying, and so I did. I was 18 for a while on paper, but I got square with Social Security. So when I was out, when I left the work, that's when I owned up to it. So Social Security knows that I'm 97, not 98. So
somebody asked if, when you were 17, did you even think about the impact that you are making now?
Absolutely not. We didn't even expect to be recognized. We knew that the military people were risking their lives. There was a job that needed to be done, and we did it. We had no idea that we would be recognized until maybe 50 years later. We decided, my sister, again, decided it was time. And she is the one who petitioned to go to Washington, D.C. and to the White House, be recognized by the White House. She said, sports figures get to go there and, they're recognized. And she said, we did something. That war wouldn't have been won without us, without the work that we did. And so she wrote letters, but it took a while. I don't know if it's all men in the mailroom, but but anyway, it took 12 years. She sent letters to the White House, and one finally got through because she wrote to Vice President Biden. And lo and behold, he got her letter, actually called her on the telephone and invited us to Washington, D.C. in 2014. And we were really treated very, very nice. Not only a tour of the White House, but dinner in the White House. We got to go to the Pentagon and met the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of the Interior and Nancy Pelosi. We have a photo taken with Nancy Pelosi and 6 of the legislators from our area. And we actually, believe it or not, was invited to eat breakfast with Vice President Biden in his home. And that was quite a day. Yes.
So we've been speaking about what the women were doing. Somebody asked, what was your father doing during the war?
Oh, my father was a career Army man. And so he got transferred. Our hometown was Eugene, Oregon, and that's where we were until I was 15. And then we went to the harbor defenses of the Columbia River, Fort Stevens. And so we were there, and then he got transferred again down to California. And that's when Mom and the rest of the family moved down here. Yeah, he was, yes. Yeah, my dad was in the Army and made a career of it. Mm-hmm.
So somebody named Mark, who said he interviewed you and your sister in 2017, wants to know if you can speak about the equal pay for equal women in the shipyards during World War II.
Yes, this was a union shop. And so it was all agreed. And so the women got the same pay as the men. And when my sister Phyllis first went to work, and she was one of the first 6 women that was hired to work as a welder in the Kaiser shipyards. And they sent this group of women to a separate unit of the shipyard, which was called prefab, where they built the deck houses, and with men. And so they were in a mixed group of men, but they had to chaperone for a while because they really didn't know how these men were going to treat these women that were doing the same physical labor that they were, but also getting the same pay. And because of the 1940s and the throwback to the man was the breadwinner, they thought there might be some resentment. And some men couldn't take the equality thing. So, but no, there was no problems. There was no problems. And the chaperone soon lost his job. But the women showed that they had the capabilities that it required. And they did their good jobs. And my sister became a journeyman, which you have to, there are 3 types of welding. There's called flat, vertical, and then overhead. And overhead is one of the really difficult ones, because you've got hot metal that this torch is burning a rod of metal to stick to other metal, and it's over your head. That takes talent. Yes. And my sister was a journeyman welder.
So Judy Hart, who we know, for those of you who don't know, who was the park's first superintendent. She's very happy to see you. Oh. And also mentioned how supportive you were in the those first years of the parks beginning in 2000. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, yes. I actually got involved with the Rosie movement when I saw the article in the newspaper in June of 1995. And this is when our city councilwoman, Donna Powers, asked women who in Richmond to send in a little resume of what they did. She said that we were going to have some sort of a monument. She said later she didn't know how this was going to be accomplished, but anyway, she knew that there was a lot of women and men, of course, too, that stayed after the war, and she wanted to recognize. She was looking forward and realized that we had some treasures here. We had some buildings that were important to the war effort, and she wanted those preserved, and she did that. And I kind of lost track of what the question was.
It was about the park's beginning.
Yes.
But you've been involved with the park for a long time.
Yes, I have. I felt that, and still do feel that this message has to get out. And I wish that history that was being taught in the schools was more thorough. Yes, with a little point of the women's efforts and what they contributed to the war efforts was monumental, but you wouldn't know it by history.
It's true. Somebody asked about Phyllis because, she was one of the first 6 women, right? Hired in Kaiser's shipyards.
Yeah.
What did she do any kind of physical labor or work like welding after the war ended?
She worked here at the Kaiser shipyards, and then she went to I think it was Houston, Texas, and saw how they built the ships there. It was a different way. Our ships were built, by prefab. Everything was just came out at this carcass and they began to fill it out. But in Houston, she said it started at the keel line, and then they just built it up slowly. It was a slower process, but her skills just helped her a lot. Excuse me.
Am I wrong in remembering that she built a house?
Yes. My sister was quite a rebel, and in that statement she made, she felt she could do anything, and she did a lot of things that a lot of people wouldn't do. Somehow or other, and I really don't know the story. She had a lot in Bolinas. If you know, Bolinas is a little secretive town in Marin County, and technically, if you don't have a water meter, you can't build a house. Well, she built one anyway. And she built it of scrap lumber. And it was the cutest little thing you saw. I mean, it had everything in it, no bathroom, but she built that too. And there were rules. And but if you're really interested, the Marin Journal newspaper has quite an article because they took her to court about this house that she'd built, and they ordered her. She had to tear it down. Well, she didn't tear it down. She sold it to somebody for $1, and they put it on a flatbed truck and hauled it off. So it was still serving somebody, but not on her lot. But she did it anyway. I mean, she tested a lot of yeah, I'm looking for a word. Yeah.
Limits.
Yes. She did a lot, and very bold. And one of the things that I couldn't believe that she'd done this. We got the invitation to go to the White House, but we didn't know how we were going to get there. You know, they invite you, but they don't pay for it. You know, you get there on your own legs. So anyway, she decided, because she did live over in Marin County. When you live in Marin County, people think of money. All of them don't have money. But anyway, she went to, because she was a Kaiser patient, and she went to the hospital there in Marin, and wanted to see the director. And she got in there and talked to him and said, actually, what the program was, she wanted to go to Washington, D.C., and would he provide a jet? And he said, no, we don't use jets. So anyway, when she called me on the phone and told me she'd done that, my goodness, Phyllis, you've gone too far. Well, apparently he said, I'll just pass this information on, which he did. And Kaiser paid for most of our trip in Washington, D.C. Yes, it worked. She says, always start at the top. And she did. I miss her.
Someone asked if you ever had to stand up to a man during your time in the shipyards at all.
No. We were respected. Right, you know, and the amount that I contributed, you know, it was stuff that needed to be done, and I did, and so did the other women. But it showed me, I only got to work a year because I was expecting my first baby by then. And the men, those architects, gave me a surprise baby shower, which I thought was really a vote of confidence, and I was just stunned that they would think so much. What a kind thing to do, and showed that they valued what I did, and made me feel good. And so my daughter has the pink baby book and all the little cards and gift cards and stuff. So it's a treasured memory. I was respected member of that crew, and I'm proud of that.
So I know that Phyllis did a lot of things to get to get Rosie's recognized and on the map, and you know, I know you miss her, and but she has a legacy. I mean, she didn't give up. Can you tell us about the last thing she was working on?
Yes, but I'm going to start a little sooner than that. My sister was very artistic, and in many ways, and many things that she did. And one year she did a sculpture, a small sculpture, I guess it's about 5 inches high, of a Rosie, and with a bandana on her head and stuff, and had them fired and everything. So I have one. But this last thing, she had a design, a plan for the design. Oh, I have, well, what's it all about? It's all about, she and May Cryer had petitioned Congress to have a gold medal made that honored the Rosies, the working women of World War II. And so she actually had a design plan, and she wanted the silhouettes or the faces of the ethnic group of women, not just one person, but several profiles of women who worked with different ethnic backgrounds. And so I understand that part of that has been approved, and I'm waiting to see it.
We're hoping it's coming towards the end of this.
They better hurry up. I mean, they've been at this for 2 years, so, but you know, the wheels of the government work slowly, but come on, speed up.
So when you think about the Rosie legacy, not just Phyllis, but all the Rosies, what do you hope gets remembered, and what do you want that legacy to be as we move forward to the future with our young people?
Well, the future is open to everyone. It's not just a man's world anymore. It's for all of us, and you can determine your own future. You can't be held back by your gender, and you want to, you know, if you have a goal, go for it.
All right. So what we're hoping will happen, a few things, excuse me, I'm just responding to a question. So a few things is, even though our bandwidth is a little strange, I'd like to end with you being able to view something we started last year, and it's the Rosie the Riveter World War II Homefront Wall of Honor, which is adjacent to the visitor center, and we installed it last year, and we hope that it'll continue to grow. So I'll show you you'll see a slideshow of some of the people that you can see and look at their stories and their faces. And our next Rsoie Presents will actually be in person, and we'll have more details later. It will be in June, and I'm very excited to say that we will be sharing the film Invisible Warriors, which is a film by Gregory S. Cook about all the African American women who worked on the home front who got largely ignored. So be sure to go to our website, rosietheriveter.org. And I do want to say a special happy birthday to May Cryer, who also, she's in Philadelphia, and it's her birthday today, and she also worked with Phyllis in getting those Rosies recognized. So thank you, everybody. I am going to share, if I can, bear with us. Files. Video. And if it gets a little wonky, it's just because
we've had a storm.
We've had a storm. So I just want to say thank you, everybody, for joining this evening. I hope that you watch our Wall of Honor Homefront workers. And also just remember, our park, which is on beautiful Richmond Homefront in Richmond, California, is free. It's free for you to come in. And it's open every single day with the exception of Christmas Day, New Year's Day, and Thanksgiving. So thank you again. Please go to the website, like I said, rosietheriveter.org, to learn about more events and ways that you can support us through volunteering. Your donations, of course, are always welcome and appreciated, and they are tax deductible. So thank you so much, everyone.
Come and see us.